Alright, for this course we're going to do a construction animation for an architectural type model. This is the museum that we're going to animate. But before we do that, I just want to bring in this museum in a complete model and show you how to texture and to place objects around this model before we jump into the full course, which is where we'll break this up into individual pieces, bring it into Lumion, reassemble it so that we can have construction type animations. So you can see my model. I'm in SketchUp right now, and this is SketchUp Pro, and I have the textures pretty much how I want them to be. And this isn't completely necessary, but it will make the process easier once we bring it in to Lumion. So one great thing about Lumion right now is that it now natively supports SketchUp files. So you don't have to do any sort of exporting. You can just save your file, complete museum, and then when you go into Lumion, you can just bring in that SketchUp file. And another great part about it is Lumion keeps that link, so if I go and I edit this model, I can go refresh it in Lumion and those changes can be observed. So we're going to jump into Lumion, and for this tutorial we're going to do a conceptual animation, which means we're not going to have terrain, we're not going to have surrounding buildings. But if you're interested in how to bring in terrain into a model, feel free to check out my other training video, or my training course, which is Lumion for Engineers and Transportation. So once you're into Lumion, you have these 4 tabs on the left side. You're going to want to select the Import tab and then Add New Model. This is going to ask you where you want to go, and go to the file where your SketchUp file is located, and you double click it, and then it asks you what you want it to be named. We say yes, complete museum. And one thing about Lumion also is it doesn't really geolocate objects, which is frustrating at times for people involved in civil engineering and GIS, but for most situations you're going to be okay. Okay, so we brought it in, and Lumion is trying to automatically interpret the textures and display them the way that they think they need to be displayed, but we're going to change them because in most cases Lumion's textures are better. It automatically has them bump mapped. You can scale them. They render better and more accurate. And so that's what we're going to do right now, is we're going to texture this building. So let's take these columns, for example. You want to click on Edit Materials, and you're going to select the model, which is the entire model. After that loads, we select a column, Add Material, Column, and then you have all these different materials. You have wood, wood floor, bricks, tiles, ground, concrete, carpet, miscellaneous, asphalt, metal, and marble. And then also you have custom, which is billboard, color, glass, invisible, terrain, or landscape, light map, standard, water, waterfall. And that's very handy as well, as I will show you in just a second. But for these columns, let's make them concrete. This is usually my favorite, just down here in the bottom left. But I want to try something else. Let's try this one, and I think I like that one. Now, once you choose the texture, you can change the bump, so that makes it smooth or rough, and you can see that the sun reflects automatically based on how rough it is. And that's back to the game engine concept of Lumion, is it's rendering in real time. You can change the scale. You can make it look really small or really large. Leave it right about there. You can make it darker or lighter. You can make it glossy, reflective. So you just imagine you can do this for all of your textures in all of your models. So that's what I'm going to do now, is texture all of the other items. And if you were working with an actual client, you would probably have materials that you needed to set here, but as this is a tutorial, I can be a little bit more flexible. Okay, so I kind of like that patterning. Now this blue panel right here, this is what's supposed to be glass. And the way that Lumion handles materials from SketchUp is every time this glass material appears, when I change it, it's going to change it everywhere. So sometimes that's a good thing because you can change the materials more quickly, but sometimes it's frustrating if you think this glass needs to be white and this glass needs to be blue. You're going to have to make sure that those are different textures in SketchUp before you bring them into Lumion, because you can't change them once you're into Lumion. So I go to custom and I'm going to choose glass. And then you can change the properties here as well. I want them quite so reflective. And you can just zoom right through the textures or the models. Just going to use the grass texture here. Now back to what I was saying before, notice when I select this, it also highlights everything else that has that texture. If you notice this wall over here, this is already textured from SketchUp, and this actually looks pretty good. And so this is one of the cases where I'm probably just going to leave it the way that it is because it looks fine. I believe this wood texture is also from SketchUp, and again, it looks just fine to me, so I'm going to leave it the way that it is. Up here on top, we have a lot of glass, and one limitation of Lumion is there's pretty much just the one glass type, and then you can edit it a little bit, but you don't have quite the options that you do in other software programs. So what happened there was a kind of a rogue piece, and so I just made that invisible. And you end up doing that, for example, see this individual, this person, I don't want them to be there. I want to add Lumion people, and so I'm going to select him, and I'm going to make him invisible. Alternatively, you could go back into SketchUp, you could delete him, and then you could refresh this model. And the way you refresh the model is when you're in the material editor, you go to reload model and reapply materials right here. So as you can see, when I made this roof glass, it automatically let the light into this area. This is kind of like my countertop. Smooth it out a little bit, make it reflective. Apologize for the speedy navigation. And you can see the building starts to take shape. In the back we have this pool area. I'm going to select it, go to custom, and we're going to make this water. And you'll notice the difference between Lumion water and SketchUp water. You can change this stuff, make it foamier, reflective, and then you can add tile here. Alright, so now we've textured the model and we are ready to start placing objects.